Good afternoon. I'm Tracy Patterson, Director of Alumni Relations for Rhodes College. Thank you for joining us today. Last December 6th, Rhodes Board Chair Carrie Fowler announced that after a nationwide search, the Board of Trustees unanimously voted to appoint Jennifer Collins, President of Rhodes College. President College began her tenure at Rhodes on July 1, just 3 weeks ago, after serving 8 years as Dean of Dedman School of Law at Southern Methodist University in Dallas. During her tenure at MUS, President Collins raised more than $50 million for scholarships, endowed chairs, and professorships, and new academic and student programming. She increased the number of applications to the law school every year, exceeding both the national and regional averages, and improved the entering academic credentials and diversity of the student body. I'm delighted that President Collins offered to spend time with us today, and it is now my honor to introduce our 21st president, Jennifer Collins.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so delighted to be with all of you.
Well, President Collins, we are so excited that you're here, and on behalf of the international alumni community, welcome to Rhodes College. I think you're going to find it is a very passionate, tight-knit community, and they are also very generous with their time and their resources. So we're so excited to begin your leadership. We're really looking forward to it. So I thought to begin, if you wouldn't mind sharing with us your prior knowledge and impressions of Rhodes.
Well, obviously, I have known about Rhodes for decades as one of the country's finest liberal arts colleges. I had several friends and colleagues go here and always rave about their experience here and what a wonderful place it was, and was just so excited when the opportunity to be a part of the presidential search came along. And it wasn't that I was looking to leave SMU. I absolutely loved my time there, but the opportunity at Rhodes was too compelling not to have the conversation. And I'm so glad and grateful that the conversation has continued.
Yeah. And now you mentioned some of the alumni that you knew, and I was hoping that you'd perhaps give them a shout out because maybe they're listening tonight.
That would be wonderful. So Matt Lemke was in our wedding almost 30 years ago now.
Wow.
Coming up on my 30th wedding anniversary. He and my husband had the chance to clerk together. And Ann Beard was my director of development at SMU, and just an extraordinary partner and a wonderful colleague in every possible way.
That's awesome. And for everybody, Matt Lemke's class of 88. And then Anne is class of 84. So that's awesome. And then you also have had a number of really exceptional Rhodes alumni who have been students at SMU Law.
That is absolutely true. We always have a wonderful pipeline of Rhodes students. And indeed, maybe the very first way that Rhodes came into my frame when I was at SMU was my dean of admissions. We would get together every week to talk, and she would say, "Oh, I'm going to Rhodes this week. Those are my favorite students." And the word she always used to describe Rhodes students was precious. She said they are the most precious kids.
That's not one I've heard, but that sounds good though. Now, I know at some point your family lived in Tennessee. So can you tell us a little bit about your background? Where are you from originally? What brought your family to Tennessee, and where did you grow up?
Yes, I'm excited that this is actually my second time living in Tennessee. I was born in Boston, but when I was a very young child, about 2 years old, my family moved to an Air Force base outside of Nashville because my father was in the Air Force during the Vietnam War. He did not go overseas, stayed on the base in Tennessee as a doctor, and have vivid memories of the fighter planes passing overhead. So it's like coming home again to hear the FedEx planes going overhead here on campus. But that was a really wonderful experience. We were there for a couple of years and then moved back to the Massachusetts area. I think the Air Force Base no longer exists. My understanding is it is now a car plant, I believe, in the town of Smyrna, Tennessee.
I think it probably used to be Saturn at one point, and it's
I think it was
different now too. Yeah, that's great. Well, good. And now, so I know that you went to Yale as an undergrad. So why did you choose Yale?
Well, I chose Yale because I was really excited about pursuing an education in the liberal arts and looked at a number of different colleges. And I think it's probably very similar to the experience a lot of students have when they walk on Rhodes campus. I vividly remember the day my mother and I went to see it on our, college tour of New England colleges. It was pouring rain and gray and dreary as only a fall day in New England can be. And I walked on campus and just thought it was absolutely magical. I loved the students. I loved the faculty that I had the chance to meet. I loved the sense of energy and engagement and the feeling of endless possibility. And we left campus that day, and I told my mother that was where I wanted to go. And I applied early. Yale had early action at the time, not early decision, and was incredibly blessed and fortunate to get in, and truly, truly loved my time there.
I think you'll share that same kind of passion. You'll find out that Rhodes alumni also felt that way when they stepped foot on Rhodes. This is the place, this is home. So many folks, this was the top of their list, and that's why they're so passionate about it, and they continue to be today. So now, over the years, thousands of Rhodes alumni have gone on to practice law or work in the legal profession. When did you decide to become an attorney, and why?
Well, I'm always very honest with students about this because I'm trying to convince them not necessarily to follow my path to law school. So I was not sufficiently intentional about it. I was a history major who honestly wasn't sure what else to do with my history degree. We did not have the same kind of wonderful career services support at my college at the time that we do now at Rhodes. And so I decided to apply to law school and was lucky enough to get into a number of good schools. Decided I really wanted to have the chance to work for a year and hopefully defray some of the cost of law school. So went off to New York City to become an investment banker. I was not a very good investment banker, I will confess, for any of our investment banker alums that are on the call, but absolutely love the chance to live in New York for a year and, get a really terrific grounding in finance. And then went off to Harvard Law School. So although my path to it was not as intentional as it should have been, I encourage students today, talk to a lot of lawyers, really understand what a lawyer does on a day-to-day basis to make sure this is the right career path for you. I sort of fell into it, but was lucky enough to get to law school and absolutely love it. I found law school incredibly intellectually challenging. You were surrounded by extraordinarily smart and talented people who had done all kinds of interesting things. The classes were incredibly engaging. The externship opportunities were extraordinary. Met my husband there, met several of my best friends there. To this day, it was just an absolutely wonderful 3 years.
Awesome. So now Harvard Law has an impressive list of alumni. So in addition to yourself, are there any other members of your class who stand out to you?
Well, I would certainly not put myself in the category of the company I'm about to describe, but we believe we are only the second American law school class ever at any law school to produce both a United States president and a Supreme Court justice in the same class. So I was class of 91 at Harvard Law, and both President Barack Obama and Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch were members of my class.
Wow, that is very impressive. Yeah. So now, after graduating from Harvard Law, you clerked for the Ninth Circuit. Then you were in private practice. You served as an attorney advisor for the DOJ, and then prosecuted homicides as an assistant U.S. attorney in Washington, D.C. So what moved you to become a prosecutor? And are there any particularly memorable cases you tried, and why were they?
Well, that was actually an unusual path coming out of Harvard Law School. Many students initially went into some of the country's larger law firms. And I certainly considered that path. But again, remember that I was at law school, sort of by happenstance and wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. And my criminal law professor walked in the first day, and it was just magic. I was just absolutely captivated. And I know so many of our Rhodes students have that experience in the classroom with our wonderful professors as well. And so I began to think that was a career path I was interested in pursuing. I went first to the Department of Justice in a little known office called the Office of Legal Counsel, which is a 23 person shop that advises the president and the executive branch on constitutional questions. If you're watching the January 6 hearings, the head of OLC during the Trump administration testified a couple of hearings ago. So that may have been your first introduction to the office, and was lucky enough while I was there to have the chance to move over to the U.S. Attorney's Office. The U.S. Attorney's Office in Washington, D.C. is unique in that it both serves as the federal prosecutor's office in DC and the equivalent of a state level prosecutor's office. So it's really the only U.S. Attorney's Office in the country that prosecutes state level crimes like homicides. I was lucky enough to go to the homicide division and spent about 6 years there. So my best known case is really a terrible one, and I apologize to any parents that may be on the call, but it involved a series of murders that took place at a university in Washington, D.C. called Gallaudet University, which is really the premier university in the country for deaf individuals and hard of hearing individuals. And unfortunately, it turned out that one of the students they happened to admit that particular year was a just true serial killer. I would say the one true serial killer that I prosecuted out of all the cases that I did while I was a homicide prosecutor, and that he was truly sort of killing for the pleasure of it. And he tragically murdered two of his classmates before we figured out who it was and were able to make an arrest. And it was an extraordinarily traumatic event for the deaf community, very difficult for them to believe that one of their own students was committing these kinds of crimes. And it did seem to capture a fair amount of national attention. It was featured in Time magazine with a very melodramatic headline, "Murder in a Silent Place." It was featured in People. The families went on the Oprah Winfrey Show. There were a number of TV programs about the case. So if anyone listening tonight is ever can't sleep and is watching Discovery ID late at night, you may see the case featured on the case with Paula Zahn. She was one of the people who did a show about the case. I only participated in any of that media coverage when I was asked to by the family. To the family of the first victim in particular, it was understandably incredibly important to them that their child be remembered. And so they were eager to talk to the memory and share the amazing things he accomplished in his all too short life as often as they possibly could. I'm still in touch with that family to this day. It was just an incredibly meaningful and powerful case. We had fascinating forensic evidence, which isn't always the case. He mounted an insanity defense, which are always very interesting cases to try. So it was a very meaningful case for me in a lot of ways. It was actually the last case I tried before I left the office.
Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. Now, in 2003, you joined the law faculty at Wake Forest University. And what drew you to academia?
Well, I had loved law school so much. I had always thought that teaching was something I would like to pursue. But when I was at Harvard, none of the criminal law professors I had, as wonderful as they were, remember my first one changed my entire trajectory, had ever practiced criminal law. And I thought that that was a deficit in the way they were able to teach the classes. It's so important to remember that these cases involve real people navigating literally the most difficult and painful time of their lives. Certainly the family and friends of the victim, but that was true for the family and friends of the defendant too, whose hopes and dreams for their child were often shattered as they were facing, a very significant prison sentence. It was true for the community, who often lost beloved figures or were possibly going to be asked to testify. So I really thought I would be a more effective teacher if I had some of that real world grounding and experience. And I think that absolutely proved to be true. I really tried to bring the sense that you have to remember that you are trying to do justice. You are not trying to get a conviction, and you are trying to do right by as many people as you possibly can. I often said that being a homicide prosecutor involved being a social worker as much as it did being a trial attorney, because you were trying, to serve as many people as you possibly can. So as I mentioned, that was the last case I tried, the serial killer at Gallaudet University. When I tried it, I actually had 3 children under 2. There were twins in there, if anyone is trying to do the math. And when you're in trial, it's just, that is really all consuming. You're working late into the night, working on weekends. And I realized at that point it was impossible to be both the kind of mom and the kind of trial attorney I needed to be. So I thought it was a good time to make a move, and was lucky enough to have the opportunity to join the faculty at Wake Forest.
Now, are you still in touch with any of your Wake Forest students that took your criminal law classes? And
Oh,
have
I
they
absolutely am.
become prosecutors?
Some became prosecutors, some went on to careers themselves as teachers. Others went into private practice or into corporations. I always tell students on the last day of class, please remember, nothing brings your teachers greater joy than hearing about all the amazing things you're accomplishing. So I am always so grateful when a student reaches out to me and lets me know about all the wonderful things going on in their career. And it's just an enormous source of joy.
I can tell you, I feel the same way as an alumni director. If you'll let us know what you're doing so we can celebrate with you, that's what we want to hear.
Absolutely.
So now in 2014, you became the first woman to serve as Dean of the Dedman School of Law at SMU. So were there any special challenges you experienced?
Well, I would say the biggest challenge was the one that so many parents in the country today face, trying to be the very best mom that you can and the very best leader that you can be at the same time. I moved my children to Dallas when they were going into ninth grade and eighth grade, which are challenging ages to move. And so I was trying to be as present for them as possible. And I often get asked, if you could give advice, to a young person today who's just beginning their time as a parent and trying to maintain a meaningful career, what advice would you give them? My kids are now 22 and 21. And I always like to say the best piece of advice I can give is that the kids will be all right.
Yeah.
There were so many days where my husband and he was a wonderfully involved parent, but also had a very demanding career, felt that we were dropping every single ball that we were trying to juggle. And I know the working parents on the call can empathize. You feel
Yes.
that you're not being the best parent you want to be or the best employee that you want to be. But at the end of the day, my children always knew that they came first, that I would be there for them no matter what. And again, the lesson is that although the days will be very difficult, in the long run, try and remember the kids will be all right. And I hope they're proud today of the fact they had a working mom and some of the things I've been able to do in an extraordinarily blessed career.
Well, I know that they are. I know they are. So now, what are you most proud of during your tenure as Dean of the Law School?
So many things. I would say the first is the community that we built, and that became incredibly important when we encountered a challenge that none of us had foreseen in a global pandemic. We just were able to attract incredibly talented, interesting, diverse students, faculty, and staff. But I would say the special sauce that SMU students, faculty, and staff had that I've seen replicated every day that I've been at Rhodes is this wonderful sense of community and support of one another. I mean, the way people would rally if a student, was placed on bed rest while they were expecting, or if they unexpectedly, had an injury and had to have surgery or something like that, the way they just rallied to take care of each other was extraordinary. And we were very intentional about the way we tried to build our community and the way we tried to build that sense of joy and support for one another. Certainly, some of the academic programming we were able to initiate. We launched 3 new centers while I was there. We took a hard look at what we thought made SMU special and distinctive. One was the business community in Dallas. So we launched a Center for Business Law and Leadership. Another one was the intersection of technology and innovation. So we launched a new center for technology in the law. And then the third center, because Texas is actually at the forefront of some criminal justice reform efforts, was a center related for criminal justice reform. And those really provided a lot of wonderful learning opportunities for our students and new resources for our faculty. And I think related to the kind of community that we tried so hard to build was the sense of service our students had, and the commitment they had to the city around them was something, again, that attracted me to Rhodes, because certainly we have the same sense of love for and deep commitment to Memphis. And I think one of the ways that manifested itself was when the pandemic happened, we really saw 2 things. One, there was a desperate need among low-income residents in our community for legal assistance. People were afraid they were going to be evicted. They didn't know how to access CARE Act funds. They wanted to keep their businesses afloat. And at the same time, we saw a number of our students were losing summer employment opportunities, that employers were saying, we're having to pivot to online only. We just can't take on, a summer intern. at this point in time. So we were trying to think, one, how we could satisfy this unmet need for legal services, and two, care for and support our students and give them a meaningful summer experience. So we very quickly stood up and launched a COVID-19 helpline, partnering with a number of different organizations across the city to provide legal advice to the community and give our students experience in things like client counseling and interviewing and research and all sorts of things. And we kept it going for about 18 months and literally served thousands of residents in Dallas. And that was just because our students and faculty cared so deeply about, trying to be the best community partner they could be. So I was really, really proud of that.
That's awesome. So how did being the dean of the law school prepare you for being the president of a college?
Well, in many ways, being the dean of a law school is very similar to being the president of a small college. We had about 800 students. So not that much smaller than Rhodes. We were what is known as a tub on our own bottom, meaning we were responsible for generating our own revenue, paying our own salaries, doing our own fundraising, doing our own hiring, obviously with wonderful support from the Central University, but we really did operate very much like a small liberal arts college with all the wonderful opportunities and occasional challenges like a global pandemic that can present. So I think it was wonderful training and leadership, fundraising, alumni relations. Oh, and speaking of alumni relations, if I could go back to one other thing I was really proud of and something I very much hope to do at Rhodes, we worked very intentionally to try and engage with and connect and support the alumni community in any way that we could. For example, when I arrived, we were not providing career services support to students who had graduated more than a year ago. We did not have the same kind of vibrant alumni network that Rhodes has. We didn't have chapters in different cities, for example, and we didn't even have an umbrella alumni organization. So we were able to put all those things in place thanks to the wonderful staff team that I was able to work with. And so that was a really exciting part of that job. And working with the alumni and supporting our alumni is something I'm so excited to do at Rhodes.
Well, I know they are very appreciative of all that we do at Rhodes. And so we do have a great, as you said, career network. And my assistant director actually is devoted to just working in that area. So we do a lot of work also with our law students, our students interested in law. So we do a lot of work with our Memphis law as well in placing students. So that's good to hear. So now I know that you are a proponent of a liberal arts education. So can you tell me why you believe a liberal arts education is important?
I think it's absolutely essential. It teaches students how to be problem solvers for problems that we can't even conceive of at this moment in time. It teaches you how to think critically, how to discuss difficult issues civilly and collegially, how to collaborate across difference, how to research, how to write and advocate orally in a persuasive and compelling way. It gives you the tools you need to be successful in a career market that is ever changing. I am old enough that it was not uncommon for my parents to go to one place and to retire 40 years later with the gold watch. That is not true anymore. Students will have on average between 10 and 20 jobs after they graduate from college. And so we need to be able to prepare them to pivot and adapt no matter what kind of career opportunities they're going to pursue. And I think there's no better way to do that than a liberal arts education. And the faculty here are so devoted to teaching, so creative in the way they bring new instructional methods into the classroom and challenge students to think critically and creatively. And that's why I'm such a proponent. I think there's really no better preparation for the ever evolving job market that we all are in than what we do here at a place like Rhodes.
Now, so you mentioned that your husband, Adam, that y'all met at Harvard Law, and that
We
he also
did.
has a very busy legal practice. So what area of law does he practice?
He primarily does appellate and big commercial litigation. So he was very interested in making sure that Memphis had a wonderful airport, and I was able
Yes.
to assure him that it did before we made the move. He really has a national practice and works all across the country on different cases and for different clients. So I think he's had a wonderful and enjoyable career, and he's really thankful to be able to stay with his law firm here in Memphis. He's the only lawyer for his firm
Oh,
working
wow.
in Memphis, but he's delighted to be here.
Good, good. And now, you mentioned the airport, and for alums, when you're coming into homecoming, if you have not been to Memphis Airport recently, it's been completely redone and it's phenomenal. And there's actually art from Rhodes alums, by Rhodes alums, hanging in the where all the lobby areas and in the gate areas. So please be sure to check that out when you come back for homecoming, which is the weekend of October 29th. To give a plug for that. So now I know you've got 3 children, and you said they were 22 and 23. So you want to brag a little bit about what they're doing now?
I would love to brag about them. I have 22-year-old twins. My son just graduated from SMU in May and is working in Dallas, and really excited to be launched. We're very proud of him. My daughter is finishing up one class at the University of Oregon. And for any of our alums on the call who played sports here at Rhodes, she played sports for her first 3 years at Oregon. She was a Division I lacrosse player. So
Wow.
I'm a huge sports fan.
Excellent.
I look forward to joining many of you out there on the field or in
Yeah.
the gym to cheer on our incredible Lynx teams. So she's not sure what she's going to be doing after graduation. She may be living here in Memphis, so you may all get to meet her at homecoming. We're not quite sure yet. And then my youngest son, it just turned 21, and he's going to be a senior at Vanderbilt University.
Great.
And I think there is a chance, it's not certain yet, that he will follow in his parents' footsteps and pursue law school.
Excellent. And he's close too. So just 3 hours. So that's great.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good. Now, so outside of academia, what interests and hobbies do you have?
Well, as I think most of the parents on the call can relate to, my hobbies for many years were attending my kids' various activities, whether they were sporting events or a photography exhibition or a debate tournament or whatever the case may be. I absolutely love to travel. My husband and I spent a wonderful 2 weeks in Scotland in between the time I left SMU and my start here at Rhodes. I love to read, and my probably hidden talent is I'm a needle pointer. So if there are any alums who can point me in the direction of a terrific needlepoint store here in Memphis, I would love any recommendations.
I'm going to give a shout out now to Katie Walsh. If you're listening, you know what to do. Okay.
Please send me an email.
Send her an email. All right. So now one of the ways we engage our alumni, especially during the pandemic when we were all virtual, was through social media. So we've hosted some very successful social media initiatives such as Rhodes Couples and Rhodes Siblings, but our very most popular social media effort by far, and I'm talking tens of thousands of views and likes and shares, involve alumni and their pets. So I think the really important question is, do you have a pet?
I do have a pet. We have a wonderful little white fluffy dog called Chloe. And indeed, if you are interested, you can see her on social media. I do tweet at JM Collins Rhodes, but that is my more serious social media. I also just started this week my Instagram account with the very creative name of JM Collins Rhodes. And I've posted a couple of pictures of Chloe exploring campus. I happened to hear a wonderful social media presentation recently from the head social media guru for the president of the University of Virginia, who also happens to be a lawyer, a gentleman by the name of Jim Ryan. And he said, now to all you new presidents, you cannot just be on Twitter. Your alumni follow you on Twitter, but your students follow you on Instagram.
That's right.
So I thought, okay, so I started my Instagram account, and I really view social media as a way to celebrate our incredible students, the extraordinary research our faculty are doing, wonderful things our alumni may be accomplishing. There's a wonderful story about, I think, a couple who just took their engagement photos at Rhodes. All those kinds of things are so fun to highlight. Yeah, but yes, if you get on Instagram, you can see my puppy. Okay. She's not a puppy. She's actually quite senior, but
has Chloe met Palmer Cat? Because I know people right now want to know that if she's been on campus. We have a campus cat.
I have not met the campus cat.
Okay.
So Tracy, you'll have to take me around. So no, Chloe has not met the cat, but nor have I. So Chloe's not too out of touch.
We'll have to fix that. All right. Now, so what are you looking forward most to living in Memphis, about living in Memphis?
Well, my husband and I are both huge foodies, and I'm a huge music fan. So we've already very much been enjoying exploring the wonderful restaurant scene and enjoying all the different kinds of cuisine. And we are really looking forward to taking advantage of the incredible musical offerings and are really just looking forward to that. I mean, that's in my personal capacity. In my professional capacity, I'm just so excited to continue to strengthen and deepen our relationships with this great city and our partnerships, and to be the very best community partner that we can possibly be. So I got to go to Crosstown Concourse today. It was absolutely wonderful and
Amazing.
really, really enjoyed that.
Really. And so for those alums who have been back to campus, that's the old Sears Tower, and it's become this incredible multi-purpose building with restaurants and apartments and offices. And it's just really a very cool place to come visit. So now, is there one thing else that you'd like for the Rhodes College alumni community to know about you?
I would want them to know just how incredibly honored and humbled and excited I am to be here. I truly think that Rhodes is an extraordinary place. And really, when people ask me, why did you decide to come here? It was the community members that I met, the alumni, the students, the faculty, the staff, just this extraordinary deep love for the institution. And I'm so excited to be part of that. And I think that there are so many opportunities for the college going forward. Really looking forward to celebrating the 100th anniversary
Yep.
of our arrival in Memphis in just a few short years. Really looking forward to launching a capital campaign once we're ready to do that, to be able to support some of the incredible dreams and ideas that we have for ourselves. So I would say, really just would love to let the community know how truly grateful and honored I am to be part of it. Can't wait to get out on the road and meet lots of alumni, trying to balance, my internal responsibilities and my external responsibilities. But we are planning on doing quite a bit of traveling in my first year, so I can listen and learn and hear from all of you about your hopes and dreams for the institution. So I hope that you'll be able to join us when we come to your town. And if you can't, I'll make another plug for homecoming.
That's right. And then also we got Homecoming and Cajun Fest immediately following Homecoming. So if you can't come the last weekend of October, you can come November 12th, which is also our last home football game of the season. And that's a lot of fun. But we will have President Collins and opportunities for y'all to meet in your hometowns on campus. So we do want you to meet her because she's amazing, and I want her to meet you because you're also incredible. So thank you so much for being with us tonight. I really appreciate your time, and I'm looking forward to your future leadership of our beloved alma mater. So thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
so much. It was an absolute delight to talk to you tonight, and I look forward to meeting everyone on the call just as soon as I possibly can.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good
Thank
night,
you.
everybody.
Good night, everyone.